The fog in the cemetery looked thin through the naked eye, but through Daniel's camera lens it seemed thicker, swallowing the crooked rows of gravestones like slow gray smoke. He lowered the camera after his first shot and frowned, because for a split second he thought he saw something standing behind the tallest stone. Daniel stepped closer to the grave and checked the ground with his flashlight, but the soil was untouched and the fog drifted quietly between leaning headstones. When he glanced at the photo on the camera screen, his breath caught. A pale face was peering from behind the gravestone, its mouth stretched open as if whispering. He slowly turned around to confirm what he already suspected. There was nothing there. Daniel zoomed in on the image with trembling fingers, watching the gray face distort into a twisted grin, its hollow eyes staring directly at the camera lens. A cold wind slid between the graves, rattling dead branches above him, and Daniel felt the uneasy sensation of being quietly watched. He lifted the camera again and took another photograph further down the path where the fog gathered thicker. The shutter clicked softly, but when the image appeared on the screen, 3 faint faces were now floating between the gravestones' faces that hadn't existed seconds before. Daniel lowered the camera and scanned the cemetery again. The path was empty, but the silence suddenly felt crowded. He swallowed and aimed the camera toward a broken angel statue leaning over an old grave. The flash illuminated the scene for a heartbeat, and the statue's stone wings threw long shadows across the ground like claws. When the photo appeared, the angel statue was still there, but a face had formed in the darkness beneath its wings, lips moving as if forming words. Daniel replayed the photo, zooming closer. The lips were slightly open now, and though the image made no sound, he felt a whisper crawling across the back of his neck. He spun around quickly. The cemetery behind him looked unchanged, yet the fog seemed to shift in slow circles around him like something breathing. Daniel wiped his sweaty palms on his jacket and took another picture toward the entrance gate. This time, the photograph showed dozens of blurred faces crowding behind the iron bars, their mouths stretched wide like silent screams. His heartbeat began to pound louder than the wind, and when he looked up from the camera, the gate in front of him was still completely empty. He backed away slowly along the gravel path, trying to calm himself. If anyone else had seen what these photos were showing, he muttered quietly, they would have left this place long before now. The fog thickened suddenly, swallowing the distant road beyond the cemetery. Daniel raised the camera again toward the dark trees at the edge of the graveyard. The shutter snapped. This time, the photograph showed a single face extremely close to the lens, its twisted features stretched unnaturally wide as if it had rushed forward at the last second. Daniel staggered back and nearly dropped the camera, because when he checked the trees again, nothing had moved. His breathing became shallow as he scrolled through the earlier photos. With every image, the faces looked closer than before. One picture showed them watching from behind gravestones. The next showed them between the fog. And the most recent one looked like they were standing only a few feet away. A faint whisper brushed his ear. Daniel froze completely. He slowly turned his head toward the empty path behind him. Nothing stood there, but the whisper continued, faint and overlapping, like dozens of distant voices speaking at once. With shaking hands, Daniel lifted the camera and pointed it directly behind him without turning around. The shutter clicked. For several seconds he couldn't bring himself to look. When he finally lowered the camera and checked the photo, his stomach dropped. The image showed Daniel standing in the cemetery, surrounded by a tight circle of pale, twisted faces staring inward at him. But none of them had eyes, only open mouths. His hands trembled as he looked up again. The fog pressed closer now, swirling tightly around his legs like cold fingers. And somewhere inside the gray mist, something shifted. Daniel turned toward the cemetery exit and began walking quickly, then running. But before reaching the gate, he instinctively lifted the camera one last time and took a photograph of the empty road outside. The image appeared slowly on the screen. The road was empty, but right behind Daniel's shoulder, standing inches from him, a tall shadowy figure leaned toward the lens. Its face looked exactly like his. Daniel turned around instantly. There was no one there. The wind moved through the iron gate with a long metallic groan, and the fog slowly swallowed the road beyond the cemetery. Later that night, when Daniel reviewed the photos at home, he noticed something new in the final image. His reflection in the camera lens wasn't looking at the road. It was staring directly behind him. And if you ever find a photograph where something appears that you never saw in real life, you might want to check what was standing just outside the frame.